Hi everybody, this is Howard, the Teaser King, coming to you with answering a comment from one of my people that follow me on YouTube. They asked me about a sort of a master's class in the over-under like I did on so I'm going to do that now as I'm preparing for week 8 of college and week 7 of pros. Really what I've done is kind of discovered a little bit more into the personality of taking it a step further from home favorite and home dog and road favorite and road dog to is this really over team or under team? Are they a strong offense or defense? Are they a strong team or a weak team? And most of the times, what do I mean by that? Well, I look at like North Texas as a weak team. They don't score. I think they average 14 points a game. They lose every game. The only team they can probably beat is another very, very weak team. And then I've taken the Baylors and the other teams as strong teams. Maybe Utah, maybe Michigan's stronger, Michigan State, Ohio State. Not even as much Ohio State, more the teams that are playing well. There's your Cal, I would say. The Memphis, the Bowling Greens, the teams that are really strong this year. And what do I look at that as? Usually they have a very good offense and a very strong defense. Like Baylor's got an extremely strong defense. You don't know it because they score 100 points a game. But they got a good quarterback, they got a good system, and they can run the ball. They've been running the ball very well. So even though they score 60 points, they're not just throwing bombs every play. So I look at them as a strong team. Another definition would be a team I would take as an underdog, like I did last week, Michigan State. What did I say? It's on the videos. You more than like, please go watch them if you didn't watch them. But I basically say they're a strong dog. The point of the bet was taking Michigan State because in the game you want to take the points, so you want to take the dog because just as easily as Michigan could win, Michigan State can win. And that's the games I love to take the dog in. So it's just that's where my expertise comes in is understanding the teams over and unders. And I go a lot of statistics on that where I'm looking. I'll look at quarterbacks first of all in the NCAA, and then I'll look at by conference. So I'll see who's the strong quarterbacks and the weak quarterbacks. Then I'll go to the overall statistics and see who's the highest scoring offensive teams and the lowest, and the best defensive teams and the worst by statistics. So if Baylor's scoring 60 points a game and North Texas is scoring 14, obviously North Texas is weak, Baylor's strong. And that was how we locked Western Kentucky last week. They were playing North Texas. As soon as I saw them, I said, I love it. Because Western Kentucky scores 50 points a game. North Texas isn't going to score at all. And the fact North Texas got 28 and they scored with 10 seconds left in the game blew my mind that they even scored 28. But that's the problem with like a Western Kentucky. They probably had their third string out there with the 55-14 lead, and they scored 2 late ones. Western Kentucky could have cared less. Where like an LSU, they probably wouldn't have got the 2 weak touchdowns on them if they were up 55-14, because they're more worried about the polls and this whole top 10 type of thing, where West Kentucky's not worried about it. They just want to win the game by 40 points. So basically what I've figured out is how to map teams as over under teams, as strong and weak teams, and that's really what I've done. And like I said, Western Kentucky, they got a great quarterback. This is what kills me about these idiots on ESPN. Please do not pay any attention to ESPN when they're saying this is the good team here and this is a bad team, and they'll rank these teams, or this idiot Mel Kiper and that other idiot Todd McShay talking about how good the players are. These guys are clueless. It's not done. I analytically do it with the best interest of how to pick winners and how to pick against teams. So I'm not looking at a team and my buddy went there and he's the coach and I'm going to say good things about Notre Dame and I'm going to say good things about Michigan or whatever the team, Florida State, because I went there, or Ohio State, watching Kirk Herbstreit. Geez, he picked Ohio State, really? I mean, didn't he go there? And this Lee Corso and all these idiots, they're just clueless. I was watching last week, and they all picked Washington, and I had basically I had Oregon strong, and I just laughed like, why would you pick Washington in that game? I mean, haven't you watched Oregon through the years? Anyway, it's just, the problem is it'll get you into false thinking, false things. It's almost like I watch it and want to go against them because they're idiots. But I make my own picks, my own plays. I've had people buy my picks and try to sell them off as their picks. So please be careful. Come to me if you want teasers, even if you want to play them in parlays. I have a good friend who I pick parlays for him, basically using the teasers. I'll take my top 5 teasers and say, hey, okay, go play a parlay on it. And what we both noticed is it's far easier to play a parlay in college than in pros. The pros, you need the teasers. You know, you just need it. These 3-point spreads, you need the teaser up to 9, you need the teaser down. New England, yeah, they backdoored them, but New England -2 and a teaser is gold. Laying 8 or 9 is not gold in the NFL. So you got to be careful with that. That's why we do the teasers, especially in the pros. You need that spread under 3. You need the spread over 7. These 3 and 4-point spreads, who the hell knows what's going to happen with that? But if you get it up to 9 and you get it down under 2 or under 1, it's a hell of a lot easier bet. And that's what I'm primarily looking at. So in college it's different. We're laying 25 points, and you tease it down to 19, and then they win by 50. So you really didn't need the 19 most of the time. Although we did with Western Kentucky and Georgia Southern, our lock last week. I actually needed the teaser in both games, even though they were both up 55-14. Late in the game, clearly fine, but 2 late touchdowns, which was surprising, but we did need the teaser there. So even though you're laying 30 points, you still need it, but more often than not, you can kind of get away without it versus in the pros. So I highly recommend, if you want to play a parlay, play my teasers and then just play them in a parlay, but do not play it's extremely difficult to play a parlay in the pros, I'll tell you that. Very, very difficult. So in college, what I'm looking for is the mismatch. What do I do? Well, again, once I figure out an over, there's a team over and under, and I have a whole sheet, and it basically says, I list every team. I got it over there. It just basically lists every team by conference, and I'll go down and I'll say Ohio State, they're an over team. Michigan, they're an under team. Northwestern, they're an under team. Not that they're strong or weak, but they're an over team or under team. So this is the first thing I do. How do I arrive at that? Well, Ohio State, with Urban Meyer's offense, they score a lot normally. And you watch with Barrett, they'll score a lot more than they did with Jones. Why is Northwestern a defensive team, an under team? Because they don't score, they have no offense, but they have a great defense. So I look for them as a defensive team, so they're an under team. So when they play other under teams, such as Michigan or Minnesota, and same reason, no quarterback, they can run and they have a great defense. So when you have no quarterback and a great defense, you're an under team. It doesn't mean you're weak or strong, it just means you're a good under team. And then we go, are they a strong team or a weak team? Now Michigan, I think, is a strong team. I would take them as a dog against anybody now, but I play them under a lot more than I play them as a dog. Well, they haven't been dogs very often. And I was surprised at that spread last week. I thought Michigan should have been a 3-point favorite. I thought 7.5 and 8 was the Harbaugh factor, as I noted it in the video, and getting Michigan State in 14 was one of the strongest locks I've ever had in my life. I mean, that was absolutely insane that I can get Michigan State. And it's like getting Ohio State in 14. Can you believe if Michigan plays Ohio State at home and they're 7-point favorites? You know how much money we're going to be betting on Ohio State in 14? It won't even be, it'll be hysterical. I'll put them in 10 teasers. I'll put them in teasers all over the board. So as I'm going through it, the weak teams are the teams that they give up 50 points. They're not normally in the bigger conferences, except for like an example is Oregon State, and the Pac-10 is terrible this year, and they're getting blown out. Now they're an under team because they don't have a quarterback, they don't score a lot, and they have a decent defense, but they're a weak team in the fact that when they play these stronger teams, they're gonna lose. And they have I don't think they've won a game, or maybe they beat like a Presbyterian or some crappy team like that. But generally, what I'm looking for in the locks and the strong plays are this mismatch. So I'm looking for, oh, Oregon State, they're terrible. They played Washington State last week. I love Washington State. Why? Because Washington State scored a lot, and Oregon State's a very weak team, and Washington State killed them. And I wasn't even surprised. I mean, it was like, yeah, Washington State scored 50 points. That's what Mike Leach does, and Oregon State can't score. They're not going to keep up with them, even though their defense will be okay for a while. And then you had an over team playing an under team, so I didn't really play the over-under angle. So that's where I get to the next thing. If two under teams are playing each other, I'd go under. If two over teams are playing each other, like a Baylor playing TCU, that's a very easy overplay. Because it's hard, because you don't know who's going to win the game, but you know they're going to score 100 points. I think Baylor scores 100 points almost every week now, because they'll put up 60 on their own, and their other team, when you're up 52-10, you kind of have your second and third team out there. They're throwing. There's no point in running. So they score, the other team gets 20 points or whatever. They make it, they get to the over. Like West Virginia last week, they killed them. Baylor at home is really strong. That's the other part of my analysis is I put them in the rolls, so I know Baylor, I think, is 24-0 as a home favorite the last 4 or 5 years, and that's what I'm also looking at is the plays and the play against. I know Baylor is extremely strong as a home favorite. Michigan State, I think, was 12-0 as a road dog. So certain teams, like I knew Michigan State would get pissed off being a dog. I knew Baylor as a home favorite we're going to blow out. Western Kentucky's very good against the number. So I'm looking at a lot of these teams. So I look at Western Kentucky as an over team. I look at Memphis, Bowling Green, all these teams as over teams. But like, for example, Memphis, Mississippi last week, I couldn't play it over because Mississippi has a good defense, and they're an SEC team. And Memphis, I watched them against Cincinnati, they put up 1,000 points. So what happens is, against a weaker height, like if Western Kentucky played Memphis, it would be a huge over, or Bowling Green. Any of those three teams play each other, you're going to get 120 points because they're just going to score on each other because they don't really have that real tight defense like an SEC, like a Mississippi has. So for Memphis to put up 40 points on Mississippi was extremely incredible, but Ole Miss didn't score back, which was even stranger because Memphis doesn't have that. They don't have an SEC defense, and I'm kind of fooled a little by Mississippi. They started scoring 70. Now against Fresno State, they're a very weak team this year. Fresno State. I said, well, it's Fresno State. And then they put up 40-something on Alabama. Well, that's Alabama. You put up 40 on them. Now you've got to, absolutely. But I'm kind of surprised that they're kind of tailing off. I don't know if people are just wise or they've got injuries. I think they got some injuries to their offensive line. And that happens a lot now. You get the injuries. But I thought Mississippi would score more. So they're a little confusing. They're a good team. But I don't know if they're an over and an under team. And there's a lot of teams like that you scratch your head at going, well, it could be over, it could be under. I think Arizona State's like that. UCLA, I have no idea what I'm getting from them. So it ends up where you're not sure. So you stick to the obvious overs and the obvious unders. And the obvious unders are the teams with the good defenses, not the weak teams. Like North Texas, they don't score a lot, but they're not an under team because they're so bad and so weak when they play the Memphis and the Western Kentuckys. They give up 60 points. So you can't play that game over or under, but that's when you play against the team. So there's basically 4 scenarios. You look at the matchup. Is it strong team or weak team? Is it an over team or an under team? So if a strong plays an over, you don't play the game over. And it could be a strong defensive team. Florida State's pretty much an under team, but they're a strong team. So you're not really going to play over. If Florida State were to play Baylor, well, I'd probably go over there. But if Florida State was playing, a team that like Michigan State, where they score a lot but not too much, and they get into a tight against a stronger defense, it's probably going to go a little bit lower scoring, even though they're explosive. The good defense will always beat the good offense. So like last week, Michigan State was actually, you have an over team in Michigan State playing a under team in Michigan. The over-under was 42. I said if the over-under was like 40 or 39, which it has been with Michigan the last few weeks, I would have went over because I knew Michigan State would score 21 points. I didn't play the game that way because the Michigan State in 14 was so good, and that's the other scenario. So do you play the favorite, the dog, the over, or the under? Those are your four choices, and it's based on, okay, tell me about the team. And that's where I'm so successful this year, is now that I've nailed the teams as over, under, strong, or weak, I can then look at the game, look at the matchup, and I know right away what do I want to do with the game. I'll give you an example. Missouri's playing Vanderbilt. Missouri's laying 3. The over/under is 35. Okay, this is this week's game. And I look at it. Missouri, they're an under team. They have no quarterback, no offense, a good defense, and they're kind of a weak team. Like all these teams are beating them. I don't think they've won 1 or 2 games. Vanderbilt is a weak team, but a good under team. Very good defense. No quarterback. So the first look is Missouri's laying 3. The game's at Vandy. So my first is, do I want Missouri laying 3? No way. I can't trust Missouri to even score. Do I trust Vandy in 9? Well, I could, but Vandy's not a big scoring team. But I would think Vandy in 9's probably okay. But let's look at the other game. Do I go over 35? I can take it to 29 and go over. I can't count on these teams scoring a lot because they both have good defenses. So the most obvious play here is go under, take 35 up to 41. Now, it's a low over-under total for college, 35, but because both teams are really strong defense, neither of them really have a quarterback you got to worry about, they're going to have a low-scoring game. Missouri played Georgia 9-6 last week. Well, who ever heard of that in college? But that's what you're dealing with here. So the way to play the game is go under 40, tease it up to 41 and go under. And that's what I mean. And I'll give you another example of a different way. Cal's playing UCLA this week. UCLA's laying 4, over under 67. Well, Cal's really not an over team. They used to be, but they have a decent defense. They run the ball. They played Washington State, for example, and the game, I think they got it 34-28 was a 62. So it's not like the 80 or 90 I expected in that game. UCLA, Rosen's looking okay, but he's a freshman. Miles Jack's out. What is UCLA? Are they an over team, an under team? They're not a weak team. They're a strong team, but they're injured, and the quarterback's okay. So I really don't know where UCLA is. I can't really call them an over, call them an under. They're definitely not weak. They're definitely a strong team. And then you got Cal, who is a strong team this year. They're a good dog, and they're probably an over. So watching UCLA get slaughtered by Stanford last week leads you to believe they're kind of got a weak secondary. Cal will eat that up. So do I want Cal in 10? Do I want UCLA +2? Do I want to go over 61, or do I want to go under 73? Well, I don't know. I mean, UCLA played Stanford to a 80 or 90 point game. Is Cal going to get 80? Is it going to be an 80 or 90 point game with Cal? I would think more over than under. 67's not too high. I can go to 61 and go over. I think Cal will score. They'll score in the 30s. UCLA should score. But I don't know if that's the best way to play it. I certainly don't want to go under 73 because these teams can score a lot. So you never want to mess around with unders with a team like Cal and UCLA with really good quarterbacks. So that leads me to my fourth selection. Do I take Cal as the, okay, so those are your four choices. Of that, how do you rank the game? UCLA, Cal. Well, the game's pretty even to me. Cal went to Utah and had all these turnovers and still only lost by 6 and could have won it at the end. They were driving, they just couldn't score. Now that's against a very strong defensive team like Utah. They beat Washington State as a very explosive offense, 34-28. They've won on the road. They have a great quarterback. Their coach, I love the coach. And their defense seems to be good. UCLA without Miles Jack. Perkins will run good. Rosen will throw good. At the end of the day, I think this will be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised who won. Cal could definitely win this game. So I don't want UCLA +2 because it doesn't help me. If UCLA was 7 or 8 and I could get it under 3, that's how you play the favorite. In this game, it's 4. I get UCLA in 2. I don't see it. Cal in 10, I really like that. I think that it's a pretty even game, and Cal showed me by going to Utah, who's a better team than UCLA this year, that they were able to stay within 6 with 7 turnovers, and I doubt they're not going to throw 7 interceptions against UCLA here. Again, I can't go under in this game because you got 2 good quarterbacks, so the other play is over 61. So it's either take Cal in 10 or go over 61. I think here I'll take Cal in 10 because I think that they can win the game, and it should be a close game, and even if they get down, they can come back. But I just think they got a very good defense and a great quarterback. So here's where it gets tricky because I can't really say, yeah, definitely let's go over in here. I can't play the under and I can't play UCLA because I don't want to start betting against Cal, who is very strong this year, and they went to Utah and played very well, so you can't discount that. And Utah's got a very good defense. So take Cal plus the 10 is, I think, the best way to play this game. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for, okay, here it's even, I'll take the dog. In the first scenario, they both sunk, and both teams were terrible, but they were both under teams. And so let me give you another example. I'm going to give you, here's a third example. SMU's playing South Florida. I have SMU as an over team and South Florida as an under team. South Florida has its quarterback's terrible, but they have a good running back. They got a decent defense, but not anything special. SMU's got a very explosive offense and an extremely weak defense. They give up a lot of points. Over-under on the game is 61, I believe. And my first thought is, well, I can't play over on South Florida, but I should play over on SMU. So it kind of cancels each other out if you're going over or under here. You kind of look at the line. If it was like 80, I'd go under. If it was 40, I'd definitely go over. But in the 60s, I have no idea what to do with the game. But I noticed South Florida's laying 12 points to SMU. And I go, that's way too high. I can't play South Florida -6 because SMU is very explosive and could easily stay in the game with them and hang in with them. Where on the other hand, I can't trust South Florida laying 6 to win. But on the other hand, SMU getting 18, that I like a lot because South Florida doesn't score a lot and SMU does. So I can see SMU winning the game. I can see them definitely hanging in there, and even if they were to get down, I don't see South Florida maybe putting up 30 points in this game. Probably 24. And I got SMU easily scoring in the 20s. So if South Florida maybe hits 30, I got SMU scoring at least 20, So at worst, it's maybe a 7 to 10 point win for South Florida, maybe. And you got 18 points in SMU. So if you just do the math and you figure SMU is good for 24 points in this game, and they should score more, let's say 24 plus the 18 is 42. I don't see how South Florida can get to 42. They don't have the quarterback for it. Their defense will be good, but SMU is going to pass all over. You can't really stop them. They played, pretty good going the year. SMU. They're not like last year where they were terrible. And they're used to seeing Baylor and TCU and that. And they played pretty close in those, not close, but they're kind of respectable considering, Baylor and TCU. So there's where you have a defensive team playing an offensive team, and the defensive team's laying 12. Had SMU been laying 12, I'd be scared to take South Florida at 18 because they don't score. But in this case, since South Florida doesn't score a lot and SMU does, and I get 18 points with a team that scores a lot and gives up a lot, but I don't think South Florida can hurt them. So I definitely love South Florida in the 18 in this game. And that's another thing I want to quickly point out of the stats. One thing you have to notice, SMU's playing Baylor and TCU. Of course their stats are going to look terrible. They're giving up 60 points. Their defense looks terrible. But you've got to, when they're playing South Florida, you've got to understand in those numbers are the Baylor and the Texas TCU games. And so you have to understand we got to subtract those out. Because they're not playing those type of teams. So it's not like it didn't happen, but these are the conference games. You almost got to look at college football as the non-conference and the conference. In the conference, SMU and South Florida is one thing. In the whole world, playing a Baylor and a TCU, South Florida looks like crap. And that's the other thing. And the same thing with Baylor and TCU look a lot better because they played SMU. But you put them up against Oklahoma and Nebraska and Oklahoma State and Texas, it's a little different point of view. I know Nebraska's not the Big 8 anymore, but I just wanted to throw that in there. So here's where you like the SMU getting the points, but again, keep in mind of the stats. So when you're looking at the stats and you're looking at SMU giving up 49 points a game, it's a lot of Baylor and a lot of TCU in that, so you subtract them out, maybe they're only giving up 30 points a game. Anyway, South Florida doesn't score a lot. They got a good running back, Mack. He'll run, but SMU definitely with 18 points against a weak offensive team like South Florida, who's a weak team anyway. Now again, they might be fooling me. They might not be weak. They might be getting a little stronger. So I got to be careful on that. And I got to adjust my weak teams and my strong teams as the season goes. Like Mississippi was really strong, has dropped a notch. Maybe South Florida, they put up a lot of points on Syracuse. Maybe they're not that weak, like a North Texas or a Fresno State or teams like that. Okay, and I'll give you the fourth scenario. The fourth scenario is strong playing week, and we'll look at that. Let's just go right to Baylor against Iowa State. Iowa State's a very weak team. They lost to Iowa. They're really not that competitive. They got blown out by TCU, I believe, or Texas Tech, one of those teams. Baylor's strong over team. Iowa State's a weak and a fairly under team. This spread's 37, which is about, it's a little high for a conference game. If Baylor was playing South Florida or SMU, I could understand it. So it's a little high against an Iowa State. I wonder if I got a better example. Let's look at Miami of Ohio and Western Michigan. That's probably a better example. You got Miami of Ohio, who's terrible. They're probably the worst team in the MAC, playing Western Michigan, who's a very strong offensive team. They're not great defensively, but they're very strong offensively. So you have this really weak team, Miami of Ohio, against a fairly strong offensive team in Western laying 25. Miami is a weak under team. Western Michigan is not as strong, but a good over team. So you got over against under. You've got Western, who put up 45 at Akron, I think, last week. I played them last week. They're actually getting points last week. It was unbelievable. I had them getting like 10, and they won like 49-14. So they're laying 25, and then the over-under is 58. So you could either play Miami in 31, but they don't score a lot. They're a weak team playing a very strong offensive team. So what do you do with that? you can't play Miami of Ohio over. They don't score a lot, but they are weak. They will give up a lot, but will it get to 58? Or Western, who's a very strong offensive team, who will score a lot of points in this game. They could get to 58 all by themselves here, but it's hard to play a Miami of Ohio being a weak under team. You know, they're not. You can't count on them to score. Now, if Western Michigan was playing, let's say Memphis, then it would be an easy over. I think I played Western Michigan, Central Michigan over. Two explosive offenses, not great defenses, and I think there was like 40. It was like 49-41. It was like it was like 41-39, or it was an 80 or 85 point game. The over under there was 60 something, so it easily went over. This game could go over, but it's hard because of Miami of Ohio. So you either look at it as, should I take this game over with Western? Well, I can't count on Miami scoring a lot, so that leaves you with the fourth scenario: is you take Western laying 19, because Western's going to score a lot, but Miami won't. And the game's at Western. I could go over 52, but it's very difficult because I'm not going to get the support of Miami scoring 20, 30 points. So what should happen here is Western wins this game about 49-3. So they really don't get to the over. You can't play Miami. You certainly can't play under, because they could. Miami could score a touchdown and they could win 56-10, which makes it go over. Because after teasing it, the 58, you go over 52, which is probably not too bad. Like I said, Western could get the 52 all by themselves in this game because they're very explosive and at home. And they played Michigan State, so they played a good, a good team. So everybody else looks easy after playing Michigan State. So that's what you have there. So here's where you take advantage of the real strong team playing the really weak team, and so that's the fourth thing. And the Baylor things too is the same against Iowa State. I feel Iowa State's very weak. Baylor again, it's the same thing, but the over/under is 80 here. Again, Baylor will probably score. Hell, they're averaging 60, so they'll probably score in the 60s. And then what's Iowa State? Is Iowa State going to give you 20 points? I don't know. I mean, they're very weak offensively, and they're very weak defensively. So Baylor have a field day. Baylor's very strong at home. This is, again, you could probably go over 72 or 74, and Iowa State will probably score 20. Baylor gets in the 60s, but I like Baylor laying the 31 here. So again, that's a game you can play in a parlay. You can tease Baylor down to 31. So that's kind of where you look at, and that's kind of like you can put them in a multiple team teaser and say, hey, Baylor minus 31, I'm under 35, which is a key. That's 5 touchdowns. Always think like touchdowns. So it's 7, 14, 21, 28. So when you're teasing, last week Western Kentucky, I locked it because it was under 28. It was 32 down to 26. It went up to 34. When you buy my picks, I highly strongly recommend you buy Monday or Tuesday, because I'll see the opening line Sunday, and I'm noticing the line moves good 5-6 points. Take Western Kentucky last week. This line opened at 26 at the win, and by Tuesday it was already up to 32. So I teased it down to 26, and I got the W. But if you waited till the last minute, if you waited till Saturday to bet it, you're screwed. I think it was a Thursday night game. If you waited to Thursday night, you're laying 34 down to 28, you lose. Now, it was a freak loss. They should have won because they were up 55-14, and the touchdown came with 20 seconds left. But again, you would have won had you played the game on Tuesday or Monday. So keep in mind to buy early, because I will look at the lines as soon as they're out. And now I'm getting very quick at recognizing who I want. I know I want Western over to Miami of Ohio. I know I want Baylor over Iowa State. I'm betting against weak teams like Kansas and Old Dominion and South Florida and Wake Forest and Vanderbilt. I mean, I see these teams, and that's where you pay me the money. Is I understand the real weak teams and the real strong teams. and I'll call them a weak team. That's my expertise, is spotting talent and then using the statistics and figuring everything out. Some people don't know how to spot a strong team from a weak team, or you won't use enough variables. You say, well, they got a good quarterback. Yeah, but I've seen teams with strong quarterbacks like UMass. UMass has Frugenhoppel, great quarterback. They're not scoring points. They're only averaging 20 a game, and they're not getting a lot of touchdowns. He's throwing interceptions. So what you would think from UMass would be 50-point games, and you're not getting them. You're getting 20-point games. So therefore, they're not a really strong offensive team and an over anymore. So they're actually a weak team. They got a terrible secondary, a terrible defense. But you got to have the eye for that. So you can't just look at, well, I got a good quarterback and he throws for a lot of yards. You got to look at touchdowns, interceptions. You got to look at, are they scoring? And I've been doing this since I was 10, so I know what to look for and how to figure it out. So that's really the key to it, and that's really knowing the strong and weak, and the over-under part of that is really the holy grail here. That's what I'm calling it. Once I figured that out, and I really just did the over-under of the team this year. I always kind of knew it, but I never really fully defined it, and it's hugely helping me. Like I said, I'm probably over 80% in college, and it's really just, it's all set up for me, you know. Ooh, boom, Baylor plays Iowa State their week, play Baylor. I mean, it's getting to the point I'm just checking injuries and off I go. That's about all there is to it. I got a huge college. I got a triple lock I've already posted going this week. I've got a whole slew of college games. And that's the thing. You can bet a small amount and play the 15-team teaser, the 11-team teaser. I'm helping my friend out. He plays a 5-team parlay. We hit a 5-team parlay last week playing the teasers. We just didn't tease it, and we won with Ohio State, and then we finished up with Oregon. Oregon getting points, so forget the teaser. We played it. 5-team teaser. Boom. $50 wins 1,000. So that's, with the amount of winners I picked, you know, I'm looking to really win a lot of these. You know, I'm going to bet my 2-team teasers very strong, and you see it in my history. Go to my history. You see all my picks. You see the locks. Once in a while, I'll do a trap, like I did on was it Monday night? Yeah, where I just like the line and I'll trap the game, and I'll do that when I don't want to risk too much or I don't have confidence in it. But I played it purely to do the trap, like the Giant Philly game. I teased the Giants and bet straight Philly to trap it, and I didn't care, so it was like no bet, but I could win them both, so it ended up breaking even on it. But in college, it's just been huge, and then I'm adding the over-unders. So once I see like a strong over-under, I'm playing that too. I got a little bit Northwestern and Alabama last week. Alabama had 3 pick sixes on me, so it's kind of hard when you get 3 picks. And if just would have had 2, I would have won. I lost by 2 points, and by that, and Northwestern lost by 2 points. Iowa scored 40 on them. I was shocked. Northwestern had a couple of turnovers, so I'm wondering if that led to easy touchdowns. But you know, that's what happened. So I'm kind of, you know, being a little more careful with the over/unders and sticking more to the teams that I know. You know, like Washington State last week and Oregon getting 9. It didn't matter if there's a turnover or 2. Oregon wins the game straight out. Alright, so anyway, there's a ton of games I love in college. Pros are average this week. I have 1 lock in the pros. And then, like I said, I have, well, actually, it's 2 teams and 3 locks. It'd be a good 3-team teaser to play, or use the 3 teams in a, you know, 5 or 7-team parlay, or a 5 or 7-team teaser and get your odds. Definitely play those 3 locks and play them early, because the lines are jumping up and not too bad on them. But by the weekend they'll probably be, you know, 2 or 3 points higher, and that puts more risk on the bet than you need to. That's what I noticed. I don't know. I'll make a lock, and I don't know if somebody's what's going on in Vegas. I'll make a lock, and then like Western Kentucky, it's 26. I lock it at 31, 32. It goes up to 34. Georgia Southern, I lock it at 28, goes up to 32. I give a lock. The spreads jump 3-4 points. So it must be people telling people, oh, it's Teaser King's lock. Cause, every lock I've given in the last 2 or 3 years, the spread always goes against us, where it keeps. If I'm laying 30, it ends up at 32, 33. Just incredible. But anyway, so that's really the Holy Grail. That's really what I'm looking at. The key is to know if it's a strong or weak team, an over and under team. And some teams you can't tell, like UCLA. I'm still scratching my head. They're a strong team, but I don't know if they're an over or under team. And then teams change during the year. I mean, Stanford was an under team, but then you had to realize it was Northwestern's defense, and then Stanford scores 40 on SC. So now Stanford isn't as weak as you thought. So you got to watch the team mature. That's usually the quarterback. Does he get better or not? And that's what you're looking at. So anyway, www.teaserking.com. I strongly recommend buy the locks, buy the college this week. There is a lock in the pros. I've been very hot in the pros. I mean, my worst week I think was 5-2. And that was actually last week, but the two were small. The lock easily won last week, New England, and the over in the Green Bay game. I love San Diego in 16. I thought that was just way too many to give them, but I love the over more, and both easily won. So basically, that's the method. Please ask me comments, questions. Go to the site. You'll get my email if you want to email me. But that's really it. Just knowing. It's as important to know to bet Baylor as it is to know to bet against North Texas. You're betting strength and you're betting against weakness. It's basically what I'm doing. So anyway, if you have questions, comments, please let me know. www.teaserking.com. Have a great weekend. Good luck, and let's go win a ton of money.